Ladies and gentlemen, today I want to speak about a topic that may feel paradoxical at first love and the moments it feels like it's slipping through your fingers. When someone loves you and yet seems to ignore you, what's really going on? What is hidden beneath that seemingly indifferent exterior? Let me tell you, it is often not about rejection, it's about vulnerability. Love is one of the most powerful forces in the human experience, but it is also one of the most vulnerable states we can ever find ourselves in. To love is to take off your armor, to let go of the walls you've spent a lifetime building, and to stand emotionally naked in front of someone, hoping they will accept and cherish you as you are. This is no small thing, it's an act of immense courage. When someone falls in love, they open themselves up to the possibility of joy, connection, and belonging. But they also open themselves up to the risk of pain, rejection, and heartbreak. Vulnerability is the price we pay for love, and not everyone knows how to handle it. It's like stepping into the light after spending years in the shadows. It's beautiful but blinding. For many people, this vulnerability can feel overwhelming. They may not know how to sit with the raw emotions that love brings to the surface. And so instead of embracing those feelings, they retreat. They ignore. They shut down. Not because they don't care, but because they care so much that it frightens them. They fear losing the one they love, so they try to control the narrative by withdrawing. You see, when someone loves deeply, they often start to grapple with questions they've never faced before. What if I'm not enough? What if I mess this up? What if they leave me? Vulnerability doesn't just expose love, it also exposes fears, insecurities, and doubts that have been hiding in the corners of our hearts. And while love is a gift, these questions can make it feel like a heavy burden to bear. It's important to understand that this vulnerability isn't a flaw or a weakness. On the contrary, it's the essence of what makes love so transformative. Vulnerability is what allows two people to connect on a soul-deep level. It's the place where trust is built and where real intimacy is born. But to get to that place, both people must be willing to navigate the discomfort and uncertainty that vulnerability brings. Now, imagine someone who has spent most of their life avoiding vulnerability. Perhaps they've been hurt in the past, or maybe they've learned that showing emotions is a sign of weakness. When love enters their life, it can feel like an earthquake shaking the foundation of everything they thought they knew. They may instinctively pull away, not because they don't feel love, but because they don't yet know how to sit with the vulnerability that love demands. If you find yourself in a situation where someone who loves you seems to ignore you, remember this: it's not always a reflection of their feelings for you. More often, it's a reflection of their own fears and struggles with vulnerability. They're navigating a battlefield within themselves, trying to reconcile their desire to love with their fear of being hurt. As difficult as it may be, the best way to approach this dynamic is with empathy and patience. Ask yourself, what might they be afraid of? What past wounds might they be carrying? When we approach vulnerability with understanding rather than judgment, we create a space for love to flourish despite the fear. But let me be clear, empathy does not mean excusing hurtful behavior or sacrificing your own needs in the name of love. Vulnerability is a two-way street, and it requires both people to meet each other with honesty, trust, and a willingness to grow. If someone's fear of vulnerability is causing harm to the relationship, it's okay to set boundaries and communicate your own needs. Love may make us vulnerable, but it should never make us feel small or unworthy. Vulnerability is not the enemy of love, it's the foundation of it. It's what allows us to be seen and accepted for who we truly are. So the next time you feel the sting of someone ignoring you despite their love for you, remember this: they're not rejecting you, they're wrestling with the beautiful, messy, and terrifying truth of what it means to be vulnerable. And that struggle is a sign of how much you truly matter to them. Love, at its core, calls for authenticity, the courage to show up as your true self, flaws and all. Yet, for many people, the fear of rejection gets in the way. The moment we start to care deeply about someone, the stakes are raised. What if we expose our true selves and they don't accept us? What if we aren't good enough? These fears don't just live in the background, they often take center stage, creating distance in relationships and clouding our ability to express genuine love. Rejection is one of the most painful experiences we can face, and its possibility becomes amplified in the context of love. Unlike other areas of life, where rejection might sting but can be brushed off like losing a job or missing out on an opportunity, love hits at the very heart of who we are. It feels personal, it feels defining, and that's why so many people avoid being fully open. They don't want to risk giving their all and having it dismissed or worse, ignored. For someone who truly loves, this fear of rejection often manifests as a wall. They might withdraw, act distant, or even seem indifferent, not because they don't care, but because they're trying to protect themselves. They're grappling with thoughts like, if I let them in, will they still love me when they see the real me? If I give too much, will they take advantage of my heart? This fear creates a self-fulfilling cycle. By holding back out of fear, they unintentionally create misunderstandings or tension, which can push the other person away, the very thing they feared most. What's important to understand is that this fear is deeply rooted in our past experiences. Childhood moments of not feeling seen, teenage heartbreaks, or even adult betrayals all shape how we approach love. When someone has faced rejection before, their mind tends to replay those moments like a cautionary tale. They carry these scars into new relationships, often unconsciously, and it shapes how they behave when they start to care deeply about someone. Let's also consider the societal messages we've absorbed. Many of us are taught in subtle and overt ways that being vulnerable or emotional is weak and that we must always appear confident, self-sufficient, and in control. For men especially, the message is often don't show too much emotion. Don't be too soft. Don't let anyone see your fears. But love demands the opposite. It requires softness, openness, and vulnerability. This internal conflict between societal expectations and emotional needs can make someone pull back even when they love deeply. Now, think about what happens when someone pulls away out of fear. The person on the receiving end may feel confused, hurt, or even rejected themselves. They may start asking questions like, why are they ignoring me? Did I do something wrong? Do they even care about me at all? But what's often happening is that their partner's fear of rejection is creating a mask of false front that hides the depth of their feelings. It clouds their ability to be authentic, to express what's truly in their heart, and to lean into the connection that love offers. So what can we do when fear of rejection shows up in love? First, we must cultivate empathy. When someone seems distant or hesitant, it's easy to take it personally. But what if their withdrawal isn't about you at all? What if it's about their own internal battle with vulnerability and fear? This perspective doesn't mean excusing harmful behavior, but it does allow us to approach the situation with greater compassion. Instead of reacting with frustration, we can ask questions, hold space for honest conversation, and offer reassurance. Sometimes a simple, heartfelt reminder, I care about you as you are. You don't need to be perfect for me to love. You can create the safety they need to begin letting go of their fears. At the same time, it's important to recognize that fear of rejection is not something you can fix for someone else. Healing from these fears requires inner work. It requires the person to face their insecurities, reflect on where those fears come from, and make a conscious choice to lean into vulnerability despite the risk. If you're in a relationship where fear of rejection is creating distance, it's okay to set boundaries for yourself as well. Let them know that you're willing to walk alongside them in this journey, but also make it clear that love thrives on authenticity, and a one-sided effort will not sustain the connection. Let's not forget to reflect on our own fears. Fear of rejection is not exclusive to one person in a relationship. Often both partners carry their own insecurities, which can unintentionally feed off each other. Have you ever found yourself holding back from expressing your needs, fearing that it might push the other person away, or pretending to be okay when you're not because you're scared they won't understand? These are ways fear of rejection clouds our own authenticity. By addressing our fears and showing up as our true selves, we create space for the other person to do the same. Love cannot thrive where fear dominates. Fear and love cannot coexist because fear demands self-protection, while love calls for openness and trust. When someone pulls away out of fear of rejection, it's often a reflection of how deeply they care, not a lack of it. The challenge is learning to navigate those fears together, creating a relationship where both people feel safe to be fully seen and fully loved. So I ask you, the next time someone's fear of rejection creates distance, instead of asking, why are they pulling away? Ask, what can I do to foster safety and connection? Because when fear is quieted, love finds the freedom to flourish. And that's where authenticity shines. We often think of love as something big, bold, and expressive. We associate love with grand gestures, romantic declarations, and visible signs of affection. Movies and books have taught us that love should always be loud, that it should announce itself with fireworks, public displays, and endless words. But the truth is, love isn't always loud. Sometimes it's quiet. Sometimes it exists in the silences, the subtle actions, and the spaces between words. Love in its quiet form can often be misunderstood. When someone doesn't express their feelings as openly or doesn't communicate in the way we expect, we might assume they don't care. We might equate silence with indifference or a lack of affection. But love is multifaceted, and its quieter expressions can be just as meaningful, if not more so, than its louder counterparts. Think about it. What does it mean to love someone silently? Silent love doesn't mean a lack of love. Instead, it means a love that chooses action over words, intention over performance, and presence over display. It's the kind of love that speaks through a touch, a look, or an act of service rather than through dramatic proclamations. For some people, expressing love silently is a reflection of their personality or upbringing. Maybe they grew up in an environment where emotions weren't openly discussed or where vulnerability wasn't encouraged. For others, silent love comes from a deep-seated fear of saying the wrong thing, fear of being misunderstood, or fear of appearing too needy. They might love deeply but struggle to find the right words, so instead they show their love in ways that don't demand attention. Silent love is found in the little things that often go unnoticed. The way someone remembers your favorite snack and brings it home without being asked. The way they check to make sure you've arrived safely, even if they don't say much in the process. The way they quietly step in to support you when you're overwhelmed, not with fanfare, but with steady reliability. These quiet gestures can be easy to overlook, especially if we're expecting love to come with words or loud declarations. But if we take the time to pay attention, we'll see that silent love is always speaking, it's just using a different language. Now let's talk about why someone might express love in a quieter way. One of the reasons could be that they're protecting their own heart. Love is vulnerable. And putting your feelings into words can feel like exposing your innermost self. For someone who has experienced rejection or heartbreak, the silence isn't a lack of feeling, it's a shield. They may think, if I don't say too much, I can't be hurt too much. Another reason love might be silent is that the person is overwhelmed by the depth of their emotions. Have you ever felt something so deeply that words didn't seem adequate? Love can leave us speechless. It's not that the person doesn't care, it's that their feelings run so deep that they struggle to translate them into words. It's also important to consider how silence can sometimes be mistaken for distance. When someone loves silently, it might look like they're ignoring you or withholding affection. But in many cases, their silence is their way of processing. They may be wrestling with their own fears, insecurities, or questions, not because they doubt their love for you, but because they want to show up in the best way they can. Recognizing silent love requires us to shift our perspective. Instead of focusing on what's not being said or done, we need to look at what is being offered. Silent love is often rooted in a deep desire to care, to provide, and to support without making a spectacle of it. It's the kind of love that quietly stands beside you in your hardest moments, not demanding recognition, but simply being there. But let's not confuse silent love with the absence of love. While love doesn't always need to be loud, it does need to be present. Silent love still requires effort, intention, and action. It can't be an excuse for neglect or indifference. If someone is consistently silent in ways that leave you feeling alone or aren't sure of where you stand, it's important to have a conversation. Love may not need to shout, but it does need to communicate, even in subtle ways. On the flip side, if you're someone who loves silently, it's worth reflecting on how your quiet expressions of love are received. Are the people you care about able to see and feel your love, or might they be misinterpreting your silence? Sometimes a small step toward openness, saying, "I appreciate you," or "I'm here for you," can bridge the gap between silent love and understood love. At its heart, silent love is about trust. It's about trusting that the other person will see the care in your actions, even if you don't always say the words. It's about trusting that love doesn't need to be proven through noise or spectacle, but simply through being present. Silent love, when embraced and understood, has a strength all its own. So if you find yourself wondering whether someone who loves you is ignoring you, consider this. Could it be that their love isn't absent, but simply quiet? Could it be that their silence is their way of saying, "I'm here. I care. I'm with you," even if they don't have the words to express it? And if so, are you willing to listen to the silence, to look beyond the surface, and to see the quiet ways in which they're trying to love you? Because love isn't always loud, but that doesn't make it any less real. Sometimes it's in the silence that love speaks the loudest. Love has a way of shining a light on parts of us we'd rather keep hidden. It opens doors to our most vulnerable places and asks questions we may not be ready to answer. Am I truly enough? Am I worthy of this love? What if they see the parts of me I'm not proud of? It's ironic, isn't it? Something as beautiful as love can stir up so many insecurities about our own value. But this is one of love's greatest challenges. It forces us to confront our sense of self-worth. When someone loves us deeply, it's natural to feel honored, even cherished. Yet for many, that love can also trigger a quiet internal battle. They might ask themselves, why me? Why would this person choose to love me when I know all the flaws, failures, and shortcomings that I carry? Instead of feeling empowered by love, they begin to question whether they're deserving of it. This struggle with self-worth can lead to unexpected reactions like withdrawal or avoidance. Imagine someone ignoring you not because they don't care, but because they feel they're not enough for the love they're receiving. They might think, if I pull away now, they won't see the parts of me that I'm afraid will disappoint them. This dynamic is more common than we realize, and it often stems from how we've been conditioned to view our worth. From a young age, many of us are taught that our value is tied to what we do, our achievements, our appearance, or how well we meet societal expectations. When love comes into the picture, especially unconditional love, it can clash with these beliefs. Here's the challenge: love doesn't come with conditions. It doesn't require us to be perfect or to have it all figured out. Yet, if we've been trained to believe that we must earn everything, including love, it can feel impossible to trust that someone could care for us as we are. We might second-guess their intentions or sabotage the relationship altogether, not because we don't want love, but because we don't believe we're worthy of it. Think about this: when someone loves you, they're choosing to see you, the real you, beyond the surface. They see your strengths, yes, but they also see your flaws, your mistakes, and your fears. And still, they choose you. That's the beauty of love, but it's also what makes it so intimidating. For some, this can create a push and pull effect in relationships. On one hand, they crave love and connection. On the other hand, they fear what that love might reveal about them. The closer someone gets, the harder it becomes to hide. And if they've spent years believing that their worth is tied to what they can offer, the idea of being loved just because can feel foreign, even unsettling. This fear of being unworthy can also manifest in how we react to the people who love us. Have you ever noticed someone downplaying compliments or dismissing acts of kindness? It's not because they don't appreciate them, it's because they don't believe they deserve them. They might think if they really knew me, they wouldn't feel this way. But love challenges that narrative. It asks us to believe that we are enough, even when we're at our lowest. It dares us to trust that we don't need to earn love that's given freely. And that's where the growth happens. To truly embrace love, we must first confront the stories we tell ourselves about our worth. This means looking inward and asking hard questions. Why do I believe I'm not enough? Where did this narrative come from? What would it take for me to see myself as worthy of love? It also means allowing ourselves to be vulnerable. Vulnerability isn't about being weak, it's about being honest. It's about saying, here I am, imperfections and all, and I'm willing to believe that I can be loved just as I am. The truth is, our worth isn't determined by external factors. It's not based on what we achieve, how we look, or how others perceive us. Our worth is inherent, it's woven into who we are as human beings. But love has a way of holding up a mirror to that worth, forcing us to see it for ourselves. This process isn't always comfortable. In fact, it can be downright painful. But it's necessary because once we confront and embrace our own worth, we can fully accept the love that's being offered to us. And let's not forget the other side of this dynamic when we struggle with our sense of worth. It's not just about how we receive love, it's also about how we give it. If we don't believe we're enough, we might hold back in relationships, afraid that our love won't measure up. We might hesitate to show affection or to express our feelings, thinking they're not good enough for the person we care about. But here's the truth, the best love we can give doesn't come from a place of perfection. It comes from authenticity. It comes from a willingness to show up, even when we feel inadequate. And when we recognize our own worth, we give others permission to do the same. So if love challenges your sense of worth, don't shy away from that challenge. Lean into it. Let it push you to grow, to heal, and to see yourself in a new light. And remember this, you are worthy of love not because of what you do, but because of who you are. When someone loves you, they're not asking for perfection. They're asking for presence. They're asking for the real you. And the sooner you believe in your own worth, the sooner you can fully embrace the beauty of that love. Love, at its healthiest, is an intricate dance between closeness and individuality. It invites us to connect deeply with others while also teaching us the vital lesson of where we begin and where another person ends. It teaches us that love is not about losing ourselves in someone else, but about learning to navigate the delicate balance between connection and self-preservation. This balance is where the lesson of boundaries becomes essential. When we think of love, boundaries may not be the first thing that comes to mind. After all, love is often associated with sacrifice, selflessness, and giving. But in truth, love cannot thrive without healthy boundaries. Boundaries are not walls meant to shut others out. They are guidelines that protect the integrity of our emotional, mental, and physical well-being. They define what is acceptable and unacceptable in relationships, and most importantly, help us honor who we are as individuals. In love, it can feel natural to want to give endlessly. You may want to be available at all times to meet every need, to prove your commitment through acts of selflessness. But here's the hard truth, love without boundaries often leads to resentment, burnout, and even loss of identity. Love asks us to give, yes, but not at the expense of our own well-being. Boundaries are how we ensure that the giving we do comes from a place of abundance rather than depletion. Why boundaries are hard to establish in love. One of the reasons boundaries can be challenging in love is because we fear they will be misunderstood. We worry that setting limits will make us seem less caring or less invested. There's a voice in the back of our minds whispering, what if they think I don't love them enough? What if they leave? This fear is especially common in relationships where one partner feels more insecure than the other. They might think, if I say no, if I assert myself, they'll stop loving me. But the truth is, boundaries are an act of love, not just for yourself, but for the other person as well. When you establish clear boundaries, you're saying, I care enough about this relationship to make sure it remains healthy. I care enough to ensure that neither of us is drained, overextended, or resentful. In this way, boundaries actually strengthen love rather than weaken it.